It's January 21st, 2024. Um, I'm stuck in this room setting with the broken ankle at this point. They put on the television this episode of Star Trek. Um, and it's the Voyager one, and it has in it this scene that reminds me very much of Lake Winnipesaukee. It's a lake in the lower 48. I was invited with a friend to go attend a camp. I know the Massachusetts contact I made. Um, I know the sports memorabilia associated with that. For that one summer camp, whatever, I have that memory. Um, And while we were at it was a sleepaway camp. Two things happened. One is um, I was at the summer camp, and then they invited us to go off campus, um, bridge jumping, and bridge jumping. I think we canoed, but we most certainly spent one night in a tent. Um, Outside of the campgrounds. And then we sat in a vehicle and we went hunting for moose just visually, not with any sort of weaponry. Um, and I have a really nice memory of that, um, being like a North American memory, um, of just feeling that wholesomeness and that family feeling of what I thought the America I was going to experience, was going to be like for my whole life. Um, so that's amazing. And I remember at that camp, they had special events. Um, and one of them was we were called into one of the facilities on grounds, um, and they had a television, and that television had on it a movie, a black and white movie. It was a very special name. It was special to the person who wanted us to watch it as, like, next generation or whatever we were being called. Um, it had a deep meaning for that was what he was raised on, and it was his viewpoint on how growing up he wanted us to see it and to feel it, you know, in the way that he did. Part of being blessed to be one of the children born here. So, note taken, memory taken with me this far into my journey. Um, so that's why when I see things like this campaign ad of this Mozzie Phillips I mentioned the other day, um, and this Tom Swazi thing that's going on with ICE, and then it's a very dramatic, frightening, but it's stuff that is not spoken about um, in the series of rooms that I've been in. Um, and today I watched the opulence um, of Rhode Island. I remember the trip being invited there to Rhode Island. They today on the TV they mentioned something about Glen Farm. That's not where I was, or at least I don't think that's where I was. I went to a Olympic training camp there. I met a gymnast, and then I was able to participate. But the gold medal gymnastics of where I was in New York, the coach was Kevin. It was not nearly like you mean. I knew like we were okay. I mean, I knew it was just ordinary, just average gymnastics. I knew I wasn't like Nadia Comaneci or anything like super fancy. But then going to this Rhode Island gymnastics camp and meeting like real gymnasts, I mean, like real professionally, like way more advanced than we were, or than I was. It was a very humbling experience, another experience that stayed with me my entire life, which is why, like, I'm not much with competition. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Um, so that also, when I'm watching the Smithsonian Channel and these episodes of what else is out there, and then they showed Wyoming, and then there was a thing on Utah about Mormon wars, which again, I mean, I just recently met the Mormons for the first time in my whole entire life, or at least they announced themselves. I don't know if I have before. Um, but I don't know what a Mormon war is. Not something that on the East Coast I've ever even heard of before. And when they were here, they seemed friendly. I mean, they didn't seem like they were warring, but or on the war path, or I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel threatened, that's for sure. So, not so sure what goes on with that or what it really means in the grand concourse of things. Um, but I know I have some real, like in the beginning of my life, um, my mother always made sure to dress me to the nines, make sure my hair was in perfect position, outfits like a doll, pretty much. Um, but then at some point, all of that just changed on a dime. I have no idea why. I don't know what changed. Um, I don't know what shifted. I saw some of the language that they used, which I'm going to assume is appropriate language for the Smithsonian Channel, just to keep it in context of one box. Um, they mentioned something about counterculture. Not my scene, not my cup of tea, but yet it's just like where I feel I've just been shoved. Don't know why. Um and it's just like to start off so amazing um with the people that I got to meet, strangers, all of them. New Hampshire were a bunch of strangers. I mean, we got to know each other very little, but enough that you felt welcome and you felt at home with others like yourself. Um, Rhode Island, I knew that they were way better and more advanced in gymnastics than I was. I was in no competition whatsoever, very humbled from the beginning of that interaction with whomever they introduced me to. Um, but then for like life to deteriorate from like that was the pinnacle and the peak of like possibilities and amazingness within American borders, and for it to just deteriorate into like this crazy donkey thing and then a blacksmith thing and just I don't know. And like I'm not a big drinker. I don't touch it if it's not for business purpose or whatever. Again, it depends on where I'm at and what the situation is. But several blackouts have happened, and then wake ups in the middle of like and then just trying to like recoup, like, where am I? Who am I with? But like in a quiet way and not to look frightened. I don't know what happened. I just don't. But looking at this today, I think it was called Captain Marvel. I had to look that up on the internet. It was a black and white. It was not in color. Um, and they gathered us all, and we got to sit down. Um, I'm going to pause this for a second, and then I'm going to try to find um, the frightening ad that they put on today. But again, I discovered something. But again, it's whatever the information is, which is very little, in the offered on the Smithsonian Channel about the episode about Utah, the episode about Wyoming, the episode about Rhode Island. It's not this. It's not like family feudal. It's just very topical. Very like like surface conversation. Um, and in the big wide worlds of possibilities, like, I really don't understand why there was no door opened to like even the possibility of working maybe for the historical society or somewhere in like the landmark of anything. I don't know why someone thought that it was best to shove me into this crazy donkey direction. I just don't. I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to go to the commercial with Swazi and like the just where are we at? I attended church via Zoom today. Different Episcopal church than when I began. But nonetheless, it's like, at least it has somewhat of, I walk in through the doors and there's that friendly feeling like you're back amongst your own, even if it's all a facade. I don't really know, but at least it feels like it did back in New Hampshire, or even Rhode Island was a little different of a feeling, but New Hampshire for certain. So I'm going to pause this for a second and try to pull up that Swazi ad. All right, so the commercial, it's the Eyewitness News at 7, ABC. It starts with a commercial for something I've never heard of called BritBox. I don't even know it's one of these new streaming things. Again, I'm old fashioned. I mean, and this is even upgraded for old fashioned. I'm a Verizon cable box, even though I think they call it we're in the digital era. But if it doesn't have a remote attached to it, and even if it does, I'm not a big TV watcher, but as of late with the injury, I'm doing a whole lot more because there's just nowhere to go and nothing to do. The British TV.
Another murder committed. Another illegal immigrant arrested because of open border radicals like Hochul's hand-picked candidate, Tom Suozzi. Suozzi opposed penalizing sanctuary cities, voted against notifying authorities when an illegal immigrant attempted to purchase a firearm. And Suozzi even bragged that he kicked ICE out of Nassau County. A crisis on our border, murder in our streets, because of radicals like Tom Suozzi. The NRCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This Channel 7 Sports Report is sponsored by Hyundai.
I'm going to pause this and try to find another commercial that I saw earlier as well. There's something calling himself a Marine. When we went to the Intrepid on Veterans Day, I ran into this feature of the 5 branches of service. Don't really know what it means at all. There was no real explanation of what it means. I know what showed up while we were on the deck of the Intrepid. I was there with my son, my youngest son. Um, and so it says something. He talks about how he gets paid as a Marine, and it's plastic and some kind of electronic, whatever, monetary, like plastic and almost like a gift card, but they call it something called Chime, Chime, which I've never heard of. Here it was either MasterCard or Visa, and I don't really know what that has to do either. But I'm going to pause this for a second and try to find him on there because we're like, I mean, if 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 the government is paying for him as a Marine, why wasn't, I mean, again, I'm not a soldier, why wasn't I offered that in order to survive in New York? Why is he able to receive it? I mean, he's in New York Airways, so I don't know if he's a resident of New York, but why would they pay him by electronic or other? And what are they drawing upon in order to pay for these? And he refers to himself as a veteran, which I've heard a lot, which again gets very confusing. Because this is the lower 48 states between the coastlines, and then there's this monetary system. So I'm going to pause this for a second, and then I'm going to try to look for it. So at least I have it as, like, what am I seeing? And how could that potentially be, I mean, like, what to look out for? Okay, so it goes from Star Trek into this commercial about Chime.
Power the death ray at once, Majesty. Take Miss Goodheart to Arachnia. Invite the Queen to join me in battle. Together, we will rain destruction on the fifth dimension. It's 6 hours of 6 westerns, full of 6 shooter-wielding heroes. The good guys at sunrise. Weekday mornings starting at 6 a.m., 5 Central.
As a military veteran, I've applied a lot of my discipline to my sales job. My paychecks are great, but commission can be unpredictable. Now I have Chime with Spot Me. They can cover you up to $200 in between paychecks with no overdraft fees. It gives me confidence to be able to get up knowing that I have money in my account to go tackle the things that I need to do. Knowing I have that security to get me through the week makes me a better salesman, a better person. I feel like Chime has my back. Join me at chime.com. We're traveling.
So I don't have access to that level of income. And I don't know how Marines found him, they recruited him, if they targeted him. That gets confusing because we didn't have the same level of introduction. I'm going to pause this for a second. So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.